Hey guys, so in this video, I'm going to be going over what I think are the top 10 worst albums of 2023. So on my YouTube channel, which the link is in my bio, I've already posted my top 50 best songs, as well as my top 20 worst songs of 2023 list, as well as my top 10 favorite EPs, so check those out if you haven't. But I'm posting my worst albums here because, one, I want this video to be shorter, and two, I want to spend as less time talking about how horrid these albums are as possible, because these albums are bad, so let's go through them. Coming in at number 10 spot, we have the new double album from Wallen, One Thing at a Time, which sounds like one thing at a long time that feels like forever, because this album is so long, bloated, it's 30 tracks, and there is absolutely zero reason that an artist who has as less substance, no personality, and lacks as much style and depth as Wallen to have an album this long. And what pisses me off the most is during a time where we're actually finally getting some decent country music from some talented artists who actually have some fucking substance, whether you're talking about Zach Bryan, who had one of my favorite country albums this year, Tyler Childers, or Orville Peck, or even Yola, and yet you're getting country artists like Wallen still dominating the scene and just making all country music look horrible, and, because, yeah, this album is shit. Coming in at number 9 spot, an album that lacks equally as much substance, but for a completely different genre, is this new Macklemore album, Ben. Which, why does this album even exist? Not only is the lyricism as corny as cringe as you could imagine Macklemore in 2023, but the instrumentation is bland, the style is bland, the genres he's trying to utilize are not being done well, and the features don't do anything. And the opening track literally has a Tones and I feature. Do I need to say any more? Coming at number 8 spot, we have the new Avenged Svenfold album, which I'm actually going to give this album some credit for the band actually trying to do something that's different and not as generic as their last stuff, and instead trying to experiment a bit, but none of these experimentations land. It comes across like your college student on their first year of music who's never even probably picked up a guitar, trying to make something, or trying to get people to make something that sounds cool and sounds exuberant, and trying to put it all together, and it's just not coming across, but they're trying to tell themselves, actually, no, this is sounding pretty fire. It kind of comes across as like the sonic equivalent of some of Captain Beefheart's lyrics, if it had less things to write home about and was just funny in a bad way. That's what this album is. Coming out at number 7 spot, we have what I think is one of Trippie Redd's worst albums to date, Mansion Music. This album is not only mega bloated and has some of the blandest production Trippie's ever used, but also some of his blandest performances, features, where the fact that some of the best features on here are some of the posthumous features is really saying a lot. And songs like Toilet Water is really one of the worst rap songs I've ever heard this year, and this came out so early in the year and already proved to show how bland of a year mainstream trap music was going to be until Travis Scott released Utopia. And the bland trap continues at the number 6 spot with Destroy Lonely's If Looks Could Kill. This album not only continues to show why I've not been crazy about these opium artists and just really want Playboi Carti to release, but somehow this album is even worse than Destroy Lonely's last album last year, No Stylist. I mean, at least Destroy Lonely's last album, No Stylist, was able to live up to its title due to the lack of style it has, whereas this album, If Looks Could Kill, doesn't quite live up to its title, because this is more If Albums Could Kill, because this album is just so boring, so bland. It has no business being as long as it is, with the bland production, non-existent lyricism, Destroy Lonely just having no personality. And while I did not like Ken Carson's album last year, at least his album, A Great Chaos, this year was actually an improvement and wasn't actually terrible and had a couple of bangers on it, whereas this album I cannot say the same about. Coming at number 5 spot, we have Roger Waters' rendition and re-recording of Dark Side of the Moon. Now, to celebrate the 50th anniversary of this legendary album, the band decided to do a big live version of the album and re-release it as an album, as well as remaster all the tracks. But what does Roger Waters decide to do? Re-record the entire album and just completely fuck it up. I know he's trying to provide his own 2023 old man perspective on some of the lyrics of these albums without even changing them, because yes, some of the lyrics on Dark Side of the Moon still hold up to this day, but given his age and how his vocals sound, as well as some of the bland instrumentation across these tracks, songs like Money have just completely lost all of its flavor on this album. It's disgusting and it's sad. Like, Roger, please stop. Coming out number 4 spot, we have what I think is probably the worst rock album this year, and that is the new Måneskin album, Rush, which Got a bit of dislike when I reviewed this album earlier this year, but I still hold up to everything I said about this record. It's trash, it's stereotypical, it's samey, it's an example of why rock music is basically dying. If more artists and some of the most popular rock artists are sounding this bland, or just this awful, especially on songs they're recording when they're literally drunk or high out of their minds, and not even in the kind of good way where they're coming up with stuff that sounds creative or Beatles type psychedelia or Brian Wilson making the smile. Not even that kind of music you make when you're high. I'm lost for words. This album's terrible. I had to go back to it for this video, and I already regret it. Coming at number 3 spot, we have an album that I haven't really seen anyone talk about this year, which on one sense is good, but on another sense I feel deserves some more attention on how bad this album is, and I'm talking about this new U2 album, Songs of Surrender. What's sad for me is, as someone who's grown up with U2 and actually adores quite a lot of their old stuff, it's sad to see that they just keep hitting a new low after a new low after every album release, and I didn't know how much lower they could go after their previous album, but this is how much lower they went. They went ahead, kind of like Roger Waters, ruining some of the songs of Dark Side of the Moon, only in this case, it's all of the band members ruining some of their own classic songs on this album. Like, what is it that songs like Pride in the Name of Love have today from Bono re-recording it in his 60s versus the original song that they made in their 20s in 1984? I don't get it. And not only that, the instrumentation on a lot of these tracks sounds awful, bland, mediocre, and once again, Bono vocally is just really losing it, so I just don't get it. And it's sad, honestly. It's really sad as someone who is a 2000s kid who grew up with this band and then seeing them ruin some of their classics that I grew up on. Coming in at the number 2 spot, it is Melanie Martinez with Portals, and I've never been a fan of Melanie Martinez to begin with, but I was actually kind of hoping that this would be the album that would maybe win me over, maybe make me become more of a fan of Melanie Martinez music, but all it did was give me even more displeasure for Melanie Martinez. Not only is the production of this album fucking terrible, not only is the lyrics corny and even sometimes toxic, and not even kind of toxic in the good way that's taking shots at actual bad people. I just mean there's something toxic within this album, combined with the Melanie Martinez kind of allegations and the way her fans came and jumped down on people's throats and the victims' throats around the release of this album. That doesn't help either. And the sound of this album in general, as I said in my review, the sound of this, even with the bad production, the bad mixing, and the bad lyrics, the overall sound of this album and the way it just sounds when you hear it is painful. Like, the tracks on here don't even sound like, some of the songs don't even sound like proper songs, or even me calling them songs would be me being generous, because they don't sound good to the ears at all. They really don't. And coming at number 1 spot, the worst album this year in my opinion, obviously got to be the new Tom MacDonald and Adam Calhoun album, The Brave 2. Which, if you thought the first Brave was bad, bigoted, and dumb enough with its content, because you have two of the most conservative, most popular, dumbest white rappers coming together, it somehow gets even worse on this album. So much to the point where I'm like, these guys just may as well just say slurs the whole way through. Which Adam Calhoun has done, by the way. The album is just your stereotypical embodiment of your drunk, racist uncle from America talking about how much he loves the country, but hates all this LGBTQ plus rhetoric, Black Lives Matter, and this all this rhetoric, all this radical nonsense going on in the streets, just complaining about that and coming up with made-up fears in their head that aren't even true. And just coming across as entirely bigoted in the process. And another thing, the fact that there's a track on here that features Dax, and they kind of use that track as a way to say, see, we're working with other black rappers, hence we're not racist, while coming out with racist dog whistles all over the track, and forcing Dax to basically repost the video saying, these guys just fix racism, when that's the furthest thing they could have done. Yeah, this is awful, and I only listened to this album once, and I never ever want to listen to anything that any of these two artists do ever again. I'm done.